If you want a safe compass to guide you through life, and to banish all doubt as to the right way of looking at it, you cannot do better than accustom yourself to regard this world as a penitentiary. If you accustom yourself to this view of life, you will regulate your expectations accordingly, and cease to look upon all its disagreeable incidents, great and small, its sufferings, its worries, its misery, as anything unusual or irregular. Nay, you will find that everything is as it should be, in a world where each of us pays the penalty of existence in his own peculiar way. A happy life is impossible. The highest thing that man can aspire to is a heroic life, such as a man lives, who is always fighting against unequal odds for the good of others, and wins in the end without any thanks. After the battle is over, he stands like the prince in the Rue Corveau of Gozzi, with dignity and nobility in his eyes, but turned to stone. His memory remains, and will be reverenced as a hero's. His will, that has been mortified all his life by toiling and struggling, by evil payment and ingratitude, is absorbed into nirvana. A number of porcupines huddled together for warmth on a cold day in winter, but, as they began to prick one another with their quills, they were obliged to disperse. However, the cold drove them together again, when just the same thing happened. At last, after many turns of huddling and dispersing, they discovered that they would be best off by remaining at a little distance from one another. In the same way the need of society drives the human porcupines together, only to be mutually repelled by the many prickly and disagreeable qualities of their nature. The moderate distance which they at last discover to be the only tolerable condition of intercourse, is the code of politeness and fine manners, and those who transgress it are roughly told, in the English phrase, to keep their distance. By this arrangement the mutual need of warmth is only very moderately satisfied. But then people do not get pricked. A man who has some heat in himself prefers to remain outside, where he will neither prick other people nor get pricked himself. Spinoza says that if a stone which has been projected through the air, had consciousness, it would believe that it was moving of its own free will. I add this only, that the stone would be right. The impulse given it is for the stone what the motive is for me, and what in the case of the stone appears as cohesion, gravitation, rigidity, is in its inner nature the same as that which I recognize in myself as will, and what the stone also, if knowledge were given to it, would recognize as will. But he will fear least to become nothing in death who has recognized that he is already nothing now, and who consequently no longer takes any share in his individual phenomenon, because in him knowledge has, as it were, burnt up and consumed the will, so that no will, thus no desire for individual existence, remains in him any more. Do not shorten the morning by getting up late, or waste it in unworthy occupations or in talk. Look upon it as the quintessence of life, as to a certain extent sacred. Evening is like old age, we are languid, talkative, silly. Each day is a little life, every waking and rising a little birth, every fresh morning a little youth, every going to rest and sleep a little death. Men are like children, in that, if you spoil them, they become naughty. Therefore it is well not to be too indulgent or charitable with anyone. You may take it as a general rule that you will not lose a friend by refusing him a loan, but that you are very likely to do so by granting it, and, for similar reasons. You will not readily alienate people by being somewhat proud and careless in your behavior, but if you are very kind and complaisant towards them, you will often make them arrogant and intolerable, and so a breach will ensue. Writers may be classified as meteors, planets, and fixed stars. They belong not to one system, one nation only, but to the universe. And just because they are so very far away, it is usually many years before their light is visible to the inhabitants of this earth. People who pass their lives in reading and acquire their wisdom from books are like those who learn about a country from travel descriptions. They can impart information about a great number of things, but at bottom they possess no connected, clear, thorough knowledge of what the country is like. On the other hand, people who pass their lives in thinking are like those who have visited the country themselves. They alone are really familiar with it, possess connected knowledge of it, and are truly at home. The real meaning of persona is a mask, such as actors were accustomed to wear on the ancient stage, and it is quite true that no one shows himself as he is, but wears his mask and plays his part. Indeed, the whole of our social arrangements may be likened to a perpetual comedy, and this is why a man who is worth anything finds society so insipid, while a blockhead is quite at home in it. To free a man from error is not to deprive him of anything but to give him something, for the knowledge that a thing is false is a piece of truth. No error is harmless, sooner or later it will bring misfortune to him who harbors it. Therefore deceive no one, but rather confess ignorance of what you do not know, and leave each man to devise his own articles of faith for himself.